Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. It's author time once again on the Someone You Should Know podcast, and being a proud retired Air Force veteran, I always do my best to assist fellow veterans. My guest today, a combat veteran who served 11 years in the United States Army. He's got a book out called Damn the Valley. Will you please welcome my military brother, William Yeske? Welcome aboard, buddy. How you doing?
Good, Rick. Thanks for having me, man.
No problem at all. Like I say, I love my veteran brothers. So anytime we've got a project like this, we try to get the word out and get the word out and do that. I grew up in Northwest Indiana, and I joined the Air Force to become a broadcaster for Armed Forces Radio and Television. What was your reason why? What was your why that you joined the Army, William?
Mine, honestly, everything up until that point, and I joined a little bit later than most. I actually joined at 26. But it was really, there was a purpose. There needed to be a purpose in my life. And everything up to that point, I'd been a lot of focused on me. And I kind of looked at it and realized, look, man, like you're in a point in your life where you need to hit that reset button, and you've always kind of wanted to serve. You felt that calling. So, why not just go before you don't have that chance anymore? Man, did I experience the full effect.
It's strange. The Army recruiter was PO'd at me because I had done 2 years of ROTC in high school. And I was the first lieutenant in ROTC in high school, and they said, "Man, we can get you start off with an E3 in the Army." And I said, I love airplanes. We've got airplanes in the Army too, So it's like,
yeah.
No, it's just as my son said, "Dad, you drove a desk for 20 years."
My wife is actually retired Air Force as well. So she kind of was in that same boat. Why'd you do Army? Yeah. Like, hey, you ended up with me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I must have done something right. It was inevitable, hon. I did this just so you and I could be a couple.
Yeah, right. Match made in heaven.
Absolutely. Let's talk about your MOS. What was your specialty in the Army?
So I was an 11 Bravo, but I think there was Papa 2 or 3 identifier on the end of that. So I jumped out of planes and essentially went bump at night.
Okay. So were you part of the 82nd or 101st, or where were you at?
Yeah, 82nd. 101st actually.
So you're Fort Bragg. I was at Pope.
Oh yeah.
I was.
That's so funny. That's how I met my wife. Same deal. It's just crazy on how that happens, right? We wander over to the Pope side, and
both of my kids were born in. My daughter was born at Fort Bragg. My son was born at Pure Valley Hospital in Fayetteville. So yeah, going up and down.
You end up back in the area
on a Friday night,
Oh my God, or Murchison, right?
Is the Cross Creek Mall still there?
It is. It hasn't been exploded yet.
Okay, so after you did basic, did you go directly to Bragg, or where'd you go?
So it was the pathway there goes to airborne school first, and then to Bragg.
Is that Fort Rucker? Where's that at?
No, it's right at Benning. So we just went. We started at Benning and then ended up just continuing on. You go across the street, and then you end up being trucked over to Bragg after airborne school.
Jeez, that's amazing. I really salute you, because I really and truly used to watch those guys and gals hop into the C-130s, the one back in the day, the 5s, the C-17s, and I'm going. I have a private pilot license, so it's like I would rather fly you there, fly you there, let you guys do your thing.
I'm sure a lot of those guys would too.
But all the different drop zones that were right there on the back road out of Fort Bragg towards Southern Pines, you had all those different drop zones there. Really, really, I'll never forget, all those great moments there. It's some of my formative years. That was my first assignment when I was in Armed Forces Radio and Television, which is kind of an odd type thing. But I worked very hand in hand with Fort Bragg as far as that goes. Let's talk about some of your other tour of duties that you had after Bragg.
Well, that's it. I was on Bragg for 9 years, and then finished up reserves with the Civil Affairs Unit out of Washington, D.C. So, yeah, 450th Civil Affairs.
Uh-huh.
And that was interesting because, you have a civil affairs guy, which you're supposed to be, I guess the term that they use is a gun-toting diplomat. But they're supposed to be a little softer And I kind of went to the commander. You have to do an interview and stuff. And I'm like, hey, look, and he's like, nah, we're CENTCOM. We could use a good aggressive guy like you. Like, let's do it. All right.
Awesome. I got to back up a little bit. What was your wife doing at Pope?
So she originally was Germany, doing IT side of things. And then when she came over when she was reassigned on the Pope end of things, she was doing a lot of the admin work for, I want to say the units were, because they have a lot of the stuff that runs out of Pope was PJs and TAC-Ps.
Mm-hmm.
So she was running a lot of the admin side for them out of there. And that's, on that end of things, you have a lot of special operations and they work hand in hand. That's why they're there. And that's sort of how we ended up meeting was through that end of things. I was actually somewhere, I believe, I wasn't Q course. Because after this particular tour of duty, I ended up moving over to the Special Forces Qualification course and did a little while over there. Got booted out right towards the end. I was over there for 2 years, booted towards the end of the course, and then ended up over in the civil affairs side of the house.
Yeah. Oh, it will. Son of a gun. Gosh, it's just fun to meet some experience, Fort Bragg,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the other thing is the flag that's actually on the front cover of this, along with a bunch of the artifacts that are talked about like within the stories. And so some of the tactical gear and everything else is actually at the Airborne and Special Operations Museum downtown.
Jeez.
Wild.
I love it. I got to get back to that area at some point. I know the food was good in that area. I'll tell you that much, especially the biscuits. Damn the Valley is the name of the book. In your notes, it says it was a deployment that the media didn't talk about and the government didn't acknowledge. Let's talk about that. Can you elaborate on that?
So that just has to do with a lot of everything that was going on within the military at that time. You have to look at where we were. It was during the Kandahar surge in 2010. We started out 2009 in December. We were reassigned from Helmand province over to the Arghandab River Valley to replace the Stryker brigade that was over there. And it turned out there was through some political end of things and the officer end of things, our battalion commander and sergeant major were removed and replaced. But then you also have the ISAF commander, Stanley McChrystal, was also removed from command as well during that time. There was just a lot of, I don't know if you want to say witch hunts, but there was a lot of shakedown of things going on there. And just a lot of attention went there. And, where we had a 52% casualty rate, they were sort of like shying away from hey, let's not really talk about that. That doesn't look so good, and refocused on other things. So yeah, it was pretty kinetic. I mean, it was heavy fighting over there. Our end of the river was a lot of landmines. And so it was like walking through minefields, and across the river from us was our sister company, Charlie Company. We just hear them getting in hellacious firefights day after day. And it was almost like trying to keep us on the tether because we were like, let us go over there. We're tired of walking through minefields and stuff. And we're tired of that. And let's go assist. And they were like, no. But yeah, absolutely wild. I mean, when you look at the numbers and you look at the end state of how things shook out over there, yeah, of course they're going to gloss over it. And a lot of these stories are this book really honestly was something I never really wanted to write, but it ended up to where a lot of the guys over there just felt the need. There was another book that came out by the name of Bravo Company by an author, Ben Kessling. And he talked about the deployment, but really it was too broad of a scope to where a lot of the guys they felt either left out, marginalized. A lot of the stories were left. And that's another reason why this is from the platoon level is just the amount of occurrences that happened over there. It was just day after day and how much happened, the amount of stories and the amount of actionable occurrences to where you had to boil it down to the platoon level. And even then, it still doesn't touch everything. It was just a wild year.
That is just amazing. I think I read something. There was a stat that said that the casualty rate was so high, but the entire prosthetics ward at Walter Reed was you guys.
Yes. Yeah, it was crazy. The whole ward of one end. It was almost like the guys would just show up and all the other guys would be waiting for him. Hey, buddy, welcome to the club. And it just nuts. And the stories that came from there, I don't even touch on Walter Reed in this one, but woof.
Yeah, that's got to be something. And what was the catalyst that actually made you put pen to paper?
So after that other book was written, you're never going to please everybody, but there was just a lot of guys grumbling about how they thought that, hey, this is just a reporter and he doesn't get it. He wasn't there. This isn't that real story isn't going to translate over. And I had interviewed this guy during that point. I mean, we had at least, easily 5 hours in talking with one another and really just pouring my heart out on it. And I tried talking the guys down and saying, hey, look, like, this is a former Marine. He's also a journalist. This is one of your best shots to get your stories out. What's wrong with you guys? Like, have you talked to him? Have you been contacted? Like, get in touch with him. I feel like his heart was really in the right place in putting this out, but it continued to grow. And before I even saw his book, I called him and I said, look, you've heard my end and my story of it. Do you think it's something I should put down on paper? And he encouraged me. He actually said, absolutely, like, get that, put it down and see where it goes. And here we are, and I think really both books honestly go hand in hand.
Good. That's one thing. It's, I always worry when you wind up having two vantage points of the same situation, that one's going to take a pro view, one's going to take a anti-view type thing.
Not at all.
You guys were pretty cohesive as far as your ideas. What was his thoughts once he read your book?
You know what? I'm still waiting to hear back on that one. I know when it released, he had just had a newborn.
Oh, okay.
And he saw different various parts of it. Yeah, but I know. So he's also a Wall Street Journal writer. So, he is just busy churning out, he's the military correspondent, or at least was at that point. So I know his life is nuts on that end. I am curious to know though, because I'm not anti that book. And quite honestly, and I say it in here in the author's note, I honestly, I hope everybody reads the author's note beforehand. But if you get 125 guys on a battlefield or even in a traumatic event, you're going to get 125 different stories, and all of them are going to be different, but they're all going to be true because that's that person's perspective and how they experienced it at the time.
Exactly. And that's just it. We're speaking with William Yeske, author of the book called Damn the Valley. We'll be talking a little bit more about the book here in just a second, but I'd like to say thanks for tuning in to the Someone You Should Know podcast. You can check it out on the web at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast.com. There you're going to find recent episodes, our archive of past episodes, and a whole lot more. If you happen to be visiting, we invite you to go ahead and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Now, according to Buzzsprout, this is the service that shares us to all the different streaming platforms. Cannot believe this, but we are so very blessed to reach over 2,000 cities and over 85 countries worldwide. Want to salute some of those cities tuning in today: Grove City, Ohio; Lincoln, Nebraska; Elgin, Texas; and Renve in the Ukraine. Wow. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Someone You Should Know podcast. You heard wherever quality streaming audio is available. Once again, we get back to William Yeske. He's an Army veteran and author of the book called Damn the Valley. And how long did it take you to actually compose the book and actually get it to publisher? And that's usually one of those processes. You got an individual who says, I wrote it in 15 minutes. But no, how about you?
So you're going to be a little bit like, wait, what? But this story was just so ingrained that the initial manuscript that went out, the 60,000 word initial manuscript that started getting sent out to publishers, it took me 2 weeks. Yeah, I know. But now in going forward on all of this, I really held myself to the fire on that one. But during the editing process and everything that goes into it, you have another year tacked on to that.
Yeah. Now, writing a book about combat is got to be emotionally challenging. How did you approach the process of translating your experiences into the book? And what were some of the key challenges that you actually faced?
So, a lot of that was the way that it's written. I wanted it to be, it's not really from my viewpoint. It kind of skips around a little bit. You get it from my view for the most part because of it follows a stream of consciousness. But there's a lot of other stories, and I wanted to, especially like with the death of Specialist Jason Johnston. That one was that was tough. That was a tough chapter. There was portions throughout this book to where, there were tears just streaming down my face.
I can understand that. Yeah.
But having to understand that this is going to translate over and get down this emotion and get down onto paper, what you're experiencing at the time, and going through those moments and then translating that and then going back in the edits. Some of that was so rough to go back and edit because it was just, you're revisiting that, but then you're seeing it, in particular, Specialist William Ross, it pulls it out of you. Mm-hmm. It really does. Just seeing it from someone else's perspective, as well. And what happened to him during that. My end was really covered during Bravo Company. So I didn't really feel the need, it goes from my end during it because, I responded to and was right by Specialist Johnson when he passed away. I mean, I was holding him along with Doc Rudy Ponce and Will Ross. We were all right there. We were the three that were working on him at the time when he passed. And I really wanted to get Ross's full experience down and everything. And going back through it, it was tough. It was tough. But I think that in doing that and like holding those stories important, it's important. It's a good thing. It's something that I feel it's putting those guys in front of yourself. And that's really what the whole purpose, why a lot of us join.
And this is kind of a therapeutic thing also. You're getting it out of your soul and your mind and actually getting it out to where people can actually understand you maybe a little bit better. My son was a Marine in the 2003 invasion of Iraq, and he got out after 4 years. He suffers from PTSD real bad. And how was your transition from military life to civilian life? Did you have any PTSD issues or anything like that?
So I always kind of was that denier, like, no, I'm fine. I can talk about everything that happened over there, even to the point of where I started questioning, my VA psychologist and stuff. I was like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on there? Like, why do I not seem to be as affected as the other guys? Why can I talk about this stuff? And really, it kind of had to do with the fact that I was 28 when we hit Afghanistan. You have to look at prefrontal cortex was already fully developed. Mm-hmm. I kind of my background was in motorsports. So I did rally racing. So those adrenaline spikes and stuff that you would have, as well as that translates over the airborne job. You get those same type of spikes and stuff when you jump out of a plane. Mm-hmm. It's your body learning how to regulate that cortisol in those life or death moments. And I was a denier for so long, but then when I came back and started writing the book, it kind of slowed me down enough to start realizing, hey, there is an underlying thing there. And it has been, like you just said, it's therapeutic in the way of slowing yourself down enough and putting it down on paper and starting to process everything that happened over there. It's been a really good thing. And that's actually through this why I've encouraged so many other guys, like, get your stories out there and talk amongst one another about this stuff, because through this and revisiting it and talking about it, it's good for your soul. Yeah, it really is.
It is. It delves into, if people question why you do certain things, it's in the book. It's all in there. You gotta do a little digging and find out yourself. By the way, if you are a combat veteran or anyone who's listening for that matter, who's struggling with thoughts of harming yourself, 988 is the suicide prevention hotline. It is there for you. It is staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This year, 366 days because it's a leap year. And also your local VA office is staffed to help you there too. So if you've got any issues where you're not feeling really good about yourself or what's going on inside your mind, 988, the suicide prevention hotline, and also talk with your clinicians, and they're there to help you as far as that goes. How did your military combat experience shape your perspective in your civilian life as far as that goes?
Quite honestly, that end of things was those successful habits that led to, being put together on the battlefield, such as having your stuff squared away or having the discipline to, once you got back from a patrol, and you were just dog tired and everything else, understanding like, hey, look, that's all well and good, but you need to pull out your magazines and you need to dust every single round off and then put it back in there and go through your priorities of maintenance on your weapon and everything else. That's priority, and have everything set back up to go out. Because you never know when that's going to happen. And that's really a lot of the stuff in the civilian life, is putting those frameworks and putting those habits and using those disciplines to, stay in shape is one of them. That's one of the biggest things. At one point I blew up to 275 pounds. And it was actually one of the other guys that was on that deployment came down with Lou Gehrig's disease due to exposure. And yeah, I'd never wish that on my worst enemy. And to see him waste away and then kind of realize that, look, you've been exposed to the same stuff. And if anything, for your kids, you need to get ahead of it. And after I started working out and getting back in shape, I lost 70 pounds within a year's time. And that was really due to, there's a CrossFit owner in my town who was another veteran. Mm-hmm. And, that stuff translated over, and he kind of took me in on that end and showed me a lot of the stuff and really coached on that gym end of things. But having that in there and having that mental clarity that came with it, along with the physical end, it's been those realizations and then putting those habits and stuff that we learned over the military and translating them into the successful end of the civilian side really showed in college. Oh my gosh, business school in 2.5 years. At Towson University. It really would have been 2, but my advisor was, he messed up. So we had that one off semester where I took, yoga and journalism and a graphics art thing, which, crazy enough, it all translates into
how about that? Well,
with the book.
Destiny, destiny right there. Absolutely. Yeah. we talked about your time at Fort Bragg and, of course, being over there in Afghanistan. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Connecticut, northwest corner, Litchfield County.
Mm-hmm. I'll be darned. All right. And what did you do as growing up that maybe might have prepared you a little bit for your post-military life or your military life? Anything in there?
Oh, Lord. The only thing, honestly, my nickname growing up was Wild Bill. Oh,
jeez.
I know, which went over to the military side, but I was always that high adrenaline, seeking the snowboarding end of things and race cars. And I ended up with a small BMW motorsport team. They ran ITS out of Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I used some of my knowledge from there and everything, and a patent that I ended up selling to start a rally team. And I raced PGT with Rally America, and then ended up, I know one of your other guests out there had said something about, he was involved in racing and how do you win $10,000? Yeah, you got to spend 10 million first. And I didn't quite realize that at the time. And it was that I was kind of circling the drain on that. And it was just a perspective. And then realizing that end of things. And I probably could have pushed through and made it, but it just wasn't the right time. I wasn't ready, quite honestly, for everything that came with it.
All right. Being a motorsports guy, what's your thoughts on Ryan Blaney wound up winning the NASCAR Cup this year?
So a bunch of people in America are just going to turn me off right after this, but I am not a NASCAR guy. I like road courses. I like the corners. And like I said, I raced rally, which a lot of Europeans will be like, yes.
I was the guy that watched them just for 4 or 5 seconds as they went down the quarter mile. That was my thing. I mean, I reported on that for years, and I was just so excited to see a longtime friend of mine, longtime friend of the show, Doug Coletta, wound up winning in Top Fuel this year, and I was so happy for him. Even though I'm a fan of Leah Pruitt, who came up second there. She'll have another chance. Doug has been at this forever. It was his time to spot.
I was going to say, and to be competitive in that, like on that end, that says a lot. You know, they're that up and comer. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Let's talk about your marketing company, No Limits Marketing Group. Let's give a little love there. Tell us who it benefits and how people listening in could find out more about it.
So No Limits Marketing Group is something that was created when, I was just getting out of business school at the time, and I was interviewing for corporate marketing, and COVID hit. So 2019.
It's amazing.
I know, right? Everybody just had this hiring freeze. And how is a retired veteran on the tail end of what you would see in the marketing end of things? Normally, marketing is a very young field. Mm-hmm. I was kind of looked at, and they're just like, hey, well, so I was like, okay, where do I pivot? Like, where do I go with this? And it was really in realizing that a lot of the small businesses and stuff in my area just didn't have the same resources that big business did, and didn't realize that, quite honestly, with the advent of everything online that we have in the internet, you can do minimal things in order to give yourself a footprint or a presence out there. So it was taking the military mindset and that end of being a force multiplier. Hey, what has the biggest effect that you can do with the smallest amount of effort? So it was really showing them, and then bringing that, translating over and being like, hey, you really don't need to hire this huge marketing company to do this stuff. And then walking them through the process. And when they grew to the point of, all right, so this is the point where either, you need to jump up in tier, or you need to hire somebody, and we can coach them through that portion and then do the handoff. So it's been so rewarding seeing those businesses and stuff.
What's a good website for that? What's a good link that we can go ahead and share with everybody who's interested in something like this?
So hit me up on LinkedIn. There's also nolimitsmarketinggroup.com. Okay. I have pulled that off. So LinkedIn is the one, but just due to the attention and the hiatus of what's been happening with the book right now. Mm-hmm. So it's not like taking new clients, but I am still putting stuff out there, and plan on opening that back up.
All right, let's talk about your other socials that we could reach out here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all these things down into the show notes. And that way, if anyone's in their car right now and going, oh, I want that information, but right now I'm in, I'm in afternoon traffic. What's some good socials? I'll put it down in the show notes.
So I made it super easy for everybody. So, we're talking about Damn the Valley. It is literally Damn the Valley book. And if you go to damnthevalleybook.com, mm-hmm. there's the list of different ones. It's the same username all the way across Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and even Reddit. The only one that's, I know, right? The only one that's different is Twitter is W Yeske.
Okay. Awesome. Very good. I heard there's a possibility of a follow-up to the book, Damn the Valley. What's the story on that?
So the guys from Charlie Company that were across the river from us, they've been doing something. So I've brought them to the publisher. Mm-hmm. That story is coming through. There's a few of the other guys. And I also have a project that this is probably the next one in the queue, but I wrote 5 years ago, crazy enough. And it had to do with my transition experience out of the military to the civilian side, and sort of different frameworks that I found to be successful through either with health or with business or with making it through college. College isn't for everybody over there, but it sort of shows like, hey, you don't need to use your VA GI Bill benefits for just that. Like, you can use it for multiple different avenues. You can use it to go to the trade end of things. And there's other organizations out there that do this, that you don't have to pay for. Anybody who's paying out of their own pocket or their VA stipend, that's just wrong. You shouldn't be. Like, honest to God.
Help me through flight school. So yeah, make sure there's so many benefits. You might want to just go ahead and talk to your local VA person. That's
absolutely.
There's offices out there to help you. I mean, that they're there to, if you want to get to the VA clinic or whatever it might be, or just find out what resources are available to you. I mean, you
do so much more.
There's so much benefits that you can reach out for. And William, it's been great talking with you today, man. Any other things that we should know about you and your family, or the book that we should mention that while we've still got the remaining time?
Quite honestly, it's more about opening up to one another, sharing the story. If you know a veteran, this could kind of give you a little bit of an eye into what they go through, what they've experienced, and maybe even why they do such things like self-isolate. I know that's one of the biggest things that I've seen out there with the other guys that went through that, is a lot of them, they close themselves off. So you're kind of wondering, like, why aren't they coming to these functions, or, why have they sort of disappeared off the radar? And, it's not that they don't care, but some of them are just trying to process this end of things. And for other veterans out there, I mean, talk with one another, share your stories with one another, and stay in touch with one another.
That's a big thing.
That's in the end of this isn't really your standard nonfiction war book, because it really goes into that follow-up end. And there's a call to action to other veterans in there towards the end on being involved with one another and your community. You know what right looks like. You know what right leadership looks like too. Not all the time within the military, but you've seen it at one time or another. And you can really, especially these days where we kind of see a lack of leadership out there, you have more to offer to the people around you than get out there and talk amongst each other, stay in touch with everybody.
Very good. I forgot to ask, where's this available at? I imagine it's through all the major publishers and, of course, damnthevalley.com. Yes.
Yeah. So damnthevalleybook.com is, you can get signed copies through there. And really that project end of things is, for every 2 that I sell on that, I'm able to get 1 book to some of the guys that were there. And that's my goal, is to supply the guys from the company with that. But you can get it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, and really, like you said, anywhere they sell books.
Awesome. Very good. The book is called Damn the Valley. The author is William Yeske. He is my military brother, and love you, buddy. I love you, and I love all our military brothers and sisters, wherever they may be and whatever they're doing. Thank you for the job that you did. Thank you for actually, being in combat. Like I said, I drove a desk for almost 20 years.
You were still in too, though. You deserve that thanks as well, Rick. And what you're doing is awesome. I love it.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate that. Once again, William Yeske, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for tuning in to this episode of the Someone You Should Know podcast. Before I go, I want to share some friends of mine who also have a podcast. Give them a listen, and I invite you to check us out next time right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast. All right, here's my friends right now from the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.
Hey, everybody, it's Ray the Roadie.
And this is Hollywood Mike
with the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast, coming to you from the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois.
Where once a week we are interviewing local musicians and singer-songwriters, and the podcast itself covers a wide range of topics, including, but not limited to, the history of rock and roll in Chicago, the current state of the scene, and the challenges and opportunities facing musicians today.
So join us every Tuesday for a new exciting episode of the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.